Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Crypto Analyst channel. My name is Brendan, and I hope all of you guys are having a great day, no matter where you are from. And if you feel like the crypto markets have just been headed downwards for the past 6 months or so, you're definitely not alone. But there was a lot of really positive news to just release about the crypto markets and how they are continuing to fundamentally grow even while the prices of a lot of these projects are falling. So I want to go over and show just what is happening behind the scenes and how all these different forms of fundamentals are actually growing and not shrinking in the bear market, because there's some really big news, especially of what's happening in the NFT space. So if that sounds interesting at all, make sure you stick around for the entire length of the video, as there will be important information discussed the entire way through. And of course, we're going to be taking a look at what's happening on the candle chart as well, because I think this is always an important factor to acknowledge and to look at, even when we are in a bear market. But let's get into some of the news first, and then we will circle around to the charts about halfway through. So first things first, there was just a major crypto outage, or more specifically, Cloudflare suffered an outage, and this was felt all across the internet for a lot of the different centralized platforms. So if you're not familiar with Cloudflare, they help support a lot of the different crypto projects and crypto communities that exist out there. And so they had about a 25-minute outage, and this affected a lot of different providers like FTX, Bitfinex, CoinMarketCap, OKX, and a lot of other people as well. And so something to note here is it's not that FTX or Bitfinex actually were having issues, but rather Cloudflare, who helps support them in a bunch of different ways. They have a bunch of different services that they offer, so it's hard to tell, I guess, how each service was affected or which services were affected, but the end result is that FTX and Bitfinex and CoinMarketCap and a lot of other crypto services and platforms did suffer about a 25 to 30 minute outage just the other day. And so when this did happen, a lot of tweets came out saying, hey, this is a Cloudflare outage. We are not really having anything seriously wrong on our end, but rather this is just kind of a domino effect of someone pulling out the cord or something happening down the chain and having that domino effect to the actual servers and the websites of these different platforms. So this was something that you probably saw or got affected by. I know I saw people in Crypt Nation asking about this, saying that CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko was down for a little bit and that they weren't able to access everything that they were normally able to. And very soon afterwards, we did see this come up. So is this a big deal? I don't think so. These kind of outages do tend to happen across the crypto markets, but this is a really strong reminder that this could happen for an extended period of time, or this could happen again. And if it's not your keys, then it's not your crypto. And so if you're using these different kinds of centralized exchanges, this could happen to really anyone. And so if this does happen, you're not going to be able to withdraw for the most part. So if it's not your keys, then you don't technically own that crypto. Even though you do have a wallet, this is a friendly reminder that there are a lot of centralized ways that cryptocurrency is still interacting as a whole. So a lot of these exchanges are great and they help us out a lot. I love using centralized exchanges, but at the end of the day, if something were to happen like this, you don't have the private key, and they really do. And so the only way that you're able to get a lot of this crypto off is if they hopefully come back online, which they did after about 25 minutes. Now let's talk about this crypto freeze happening over here with Celsius, because this has been continuing to make news everywhere. So if you're not familiar, I'll catch everyone up to speed here, but Celsius has stopped about 500,000 users from withdrawing their money or their cryptocurrency due to quote-unquote extreme market conditions. Now, no one really knows when this is going to resume. They are essentially halting withdrawals until they see fit due to these extreme market conditions. And the bad thing here is that there could be as much as $8 billion in deposits that are frozen on Celsius. Now, Celsius is one of the largest DeFi platforms. They had previously said that they would never freeze withdrawals or block users from withdrawing. And here they are saying that they're decentralized, but yet freezing a lot. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people's money, billions of dollars frozen. And so this should come to no surprise, but Celsius has seen a steep decline and a lot of volatility in the past couple of days. They have fallen down, and at one point they fell all the way down to about 9 cents, which is wild because at their all-time high they were almost $8. So from $8 to almost 8 cents, this has been quite the steep fall for Celsius, but rightfully so. And so what we're hoping here is that they can get this sorted out. But in the meantime, a lot of people are in a really bad spot because it looks like that they don't have the liquidity to actually be able to give people their withdrawals because of how much they put into Ethereum 2.0 through staked Ethereum. So this is something to keep your eye out there on. I'll continue to give updates on this. Again, I know a lot of people were affected, and so my heart goes out to you, and I really hope that this gets resolved soon, but there's not too much new information out on Celsius yet, which is a little bit of a sucky and a scary thing for the most part. But let's continue to the positive news here and get into this significant NFT plays that are happening, because the Solana NFT marketplace Magic Eden just raised $130 million to a new $1.6 billion evaluation. Now, keep your mind, this is while the crypto markets are still headed downwards. I mean, Bitcoin is almost at multi-year lows, Solana is almost at multi-year lows, Ethereum's almost at multi-year lows, and yet, despite all of this, the NFT marketplace and the NFT industry is continuing to get funding and continuing to grow. And something that I found to be very interesting over here, and I actually think it's part of the next thing that we're going to talk about, but this isn't a short-term play by any means. And the companies that are building in here and the investors that are giving these hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, know that this isn't a 1 month play or a 1 year play. They see this as a very long-term 10+ year play for the grand scheme of things. And I think that's the mindset that a lot of us should have. I mean, if you look at the growth, the crypto market, first of all, is still very young. And the growth that it has seen already is still amazing. And I think that the best hasn't even come yet. But one of the things that they note in here is that the markets will do what the markets will do. The markets always go up and they always go down, and the people that try to micro watch every single transaction and candle that gets printed, it's gonna be a long winter for you. But the markets will always do what they do, and if you are expecting a 10+ year time horizon, then there's really nothing to be afraid of, at least not from what these leaders are talking about. And that's exactly what they mentioned, is that on a 10+ year time horizon, they are not the ones freaking out because they know everything's going to be okay at the end of the day. And not everyone's going to make it, but in the grand scheme of things, this will be just a small blip, just like every other bear market that we have seen in the history of Bitcoin. Because if we look at it like this is what the crypto chart ultimately looks like. And we have our ups and we have our drastic downs, but despite all of that, the crypto market is still very, very healthy. Another thing that they note in here is that NFTs, I believe NFT volume, or most NFTs, are down about 80% from their all-time highs in the past year. And so despite all of that, there's still funding coming in. So again, prices are down, volume's down, but it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, this is not a short-term thing for most of the investors. And ultimately, I think that's why a lot of them will win and a lot of normal people will lose, is because they get so caught up in the short term. But let's continue over here to this other news article, and then we'll dive into what's happening on the charts. But the crypto startup MoonPay is also launching an NFT platform with Universal Fox. Now, this is a massive household name. Everyone, or almost everyone in the United States at least, should be very, very familiar with Universal Fox. They're big into tech, big into movies. You've probably watched something or heard of them before. Now, under these key points, we can see that alongside this, Snoop Dogg's Death Row Records are amongst other brands to also launch an NFT platform called Hypermint. So these NFT platforms and the pioneers in this NFT industry continue to come out. And there are household names and big brands that are getting into this, like Coca-Cola and McDonald's and Nike and Gucci and even the National Football League. there are really big names getting into this NFT industry, and it looks like that NFTs are going to be here to stay. So again, we talked about this. NFTs are taking a hit. It's no hidden factor. Solana NFTs, especially Ethereum NFTs, are also taking a hit. But there's big money and there's big industries and companies coming in here during the dip to do some really cool things. And again, I'll say this again, but I think the average everyday person gets too caught up in what's happening in the short term, and these big companies and these big people and the big money, they're going to come in here and do a lot during the market dip. Now, this could be an extended dip, and they will take their time to capitalize on this opportunity, while a lot of people are just going to end up being scared. And it's going to hurt a lot of people, and it's going to really suck when things recover. And the big players and the big people who capitalized wasn't the everyday person, because they got scared again, just like they did in 2020 and 2018 and 2014. And it's something to watch out for. Now, let's take a look on what's actually happening on the Bitcoin chart. Now, Bitcoin is in a very unique place, because if we zoom out just a little bit, we can see that we are bouncing very, very well off of this previous all-time high. Now, this was previous resistance, and we'll zoom in. I understand the chart is small, but we'll zoom in here in just a second. But we saw this previous all-time high over here on Bitcoin, followed by a continued resistance the last time that we hit this. So this all-time high was resistance. It was then resistance again. And as we talk about a lot on this channel, previous macro resistance tends to turn into current support. So as we zoom in over here, we can see that this exact $19,000, $20,000 area was most certainly support for Bitcoin. Now, is this the place that Bitcoin bounces at? And it could very well be likely. And I actually just went through and talked about a couple of the key resistance levels that I see on Bitcoin in the Crypt Nation newsletter. So if you're not a part of Crypt Nation, I'll have a link to that in the description down below. But it's a very, very useful group. And again, that's where I give all my technical analysis in more detail, and you get early access to that as well. But that was actually published a couple of days ago. So the key resistance levels that I actually see over here on Bitcoin are these previous bottoms. I see a little bit of resistance right around 25.5, and then even more resistance around 28,000, which is the bottom of this range. Now, we could even say that we have more resistance around the top of this range, but what I think this does is creates a little bit of breathing room for Bitcoin to easily bounce maybe 20 to 25%, and have a pretty nice healthy bounce, if not more than that. Now, that doesn't mean that the end is, or that the bottom is in, and that the end of the bear market is here, but we could see some more chop like what we saw up in here on Bitcoin start to happen again. Now, that could mean that we're just preparing for another leg downwards. This could mean that we're forming a rounding bottom. There is not enough information from what we have right now to deduce any kind of next step for Bitcoin. I mean, we're only days after we have hit this most recent bottom, so there's just not enough information on the candle chart to give a defined answer right here. But the one thing that I do see is that there is potential for Bitcoin to bounce. Again, not saying bottom, but potential for Bitcoin to bounce in this little bit of a range over here, because the prior time that we looked at Bitcoin, we did see about a 27% range, which is exactly what we are looking at over here. We could see easily another 27% inside of this current range, where Bitcoin is just bouncing to and from. So that's what I'm looking at over here on Bitcoin. I think one other very important thing to note is what's happening over here on the weekly and the monthly chart. I mean, we could be seeing a form of triple bullish divergence on the MACD, with not one, not two, but three lower swing or higher swing lows on this MACD weekly chart. So this is something to keep your eye out on. Again, it's not confirmed yet. We have not started heading upwards, at least not in a confirmed fashion yet. But let's also take a look at the RSI, because the RSI on the weekly timescale is at one of the lowest points that it has ever seen before, and so is the monthly. But the daily, however, is not quite there yet. In fact, the daily is bouncing, and the daily has seen lower prices on numerous occasions on this daily RSI. So we're nowhere near close to the lowest that our daily RSI has ever been. We've seen lower in 2019, we've seen lower in 2015, 2020, a bunch of other occasions we have seen lower price action, or at least lower scoring on this daily RSI, which stands for the Relative Strength Index. Now let's get back into the news over here and talk about, I guess, a positive and a negative, or it could be a double negative depending on how you look at this. Number one, Bitcoin could plunge below, and again, this is something that we were just talking about, but this is true. If the traditional markets continue to crash, and if the traditional markets like NASDAQ end up breaking their 200 weekly moving average, this could be a scary thing for the crypto markets. The good news is that for the time being, we are holding and we are bouncing. However, if this does break, this would mark the first time since 2008 the traditional markets have broken below this area. And of course, when we did that, the markets really began to tank. So if this happens, I would imagine that the United States goes into a official textbook recession. And things could definitely get worse if this 200 weekly moving average breaks, which could lead to further downside on Bitcoin, hence why people are calling for $13,000. Now, in our final set of news, Tether is planning to launch a new stablecoin that is going to be tied to the United Kingdom's British pound. Now, there's a lot of FUD out there. I can't tell you how many people I've had to ask me or tell me that Tether is going to zero because Luna went to zero. The tokenomics between Tether and UST are completely different. If you are not familiar, I think I have a whole separate video actually outlining this. I know I've made posts about it in Crypt Nation outlining the differences, but the tokenomics behind Tether and UST are very, very different. So I would look into how the reserves and how the stabilization mechanisms work, and how they really vary between those two different stable coins. But nonetheless, Tether is a hot topic of whether they actually have the funds to back their cryptocurrency. So far, they've remained very stable through every dip for the most part. Any kind of depeg that they see is very quickly fixed, and it's usually due to a lack of liquidity on an exchange and not an underlying problem with Tether itself. So with them coming out with another stablecoin in this bear market, this is raising a lot of brows because people are already saying that Tether doesn't have the funds and they don't have the stability, yet here they come with another stablecoin which would, again, need and require more attention and more money. So for me, this is a sign of either, number one, Tether is doubling down on their bet and they are looking to really take some risk and gain some market cap in this dip, or number two, they really do have the funds and they feel very secure where they're at, hence why they're launching another stablecoin. So that's going to go ahead and round us out over here. Again, a lot of really positive news. New major stablecoins launching, the NFT space rapidly growing. I'd say the only really negative thing that we've seen so far is what's happening with Celsius and this temporary outage due to Cloudflare. But that's going to wrap us up for this video. I hope you all did enjoy. We had a little bit of a longer video today, but there was a lot to cover in this episode. So if you did enjoy, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. It certainly helps out the channel a lot. And feel free to share this video with someone that needs to hear it. Maybe they need a little bit of light with all the bearishness and all the bad news that people have heard over the last 6 months, because prices have headed down. But hopefully we can be a bright light to everyone and shine some positivity in the crypto space. So once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.